Thank you so much, Professor Singh, for quite a wonderful conference report. We're now at the last stage of our closing session. I would request Professor MS Gaur, who's presently the Director of Indian Institute of Technology, Jammu, and has willingly agreed to grace us despite all of his hardships. Professor Gaur is an alumnus of IISc Bangalore and University of Southampton, and he's a distinguished academician and researcher. Professor Gaur, the mic is yours.
So good afternoon. We are running late, and I'm happy at least somebody realized that I'm in hardships at Jammu. It's a new institution which came into existence 3 years back. What we call ourselves as 3G IITs, third generation. 6 of us, Tirupati, Bhilai, I met somebody, then Palakkad, you have Dharwad, Jammu, and which is 6th one? Goa. Yeah, Goa, they don't have land yet actually, that's why so we struggle with that. So I'm happy to be here. In fact, Vivek is very enthusiastic whenever we meet. We think that we know for ages, but that happens. Happy to be here because this is a special gathering of directors of computer centers of CFTIs and central universities and ICERs. Because I have been part of my institution where I did a lot of generation or version of networking and the central infrastructure, and which is I always saw for the functional perspective as well as how to maintain and make it running in spite of various challenges. So I have some few points actually again as a habit, so I just noted down that what can be a good point which can work it out. So the topic is digital information transformation in the higher education, and there are two seeding thoughts which came to me. You know, we are driven by or flashed with some quarterly reports of Gartners and other things that you have to adopt this technology, and which is very good for us. But at the same time, we have some constraints somewhere lying over there, whether we can afford that or not. We want to have it, but whether it can come or not depends on where we are and what we are doing with the technology. And engineering solution exists, but again, how this technology can shape our surrounding, our institutions from various factors, we have to again always argue and try to see this. So some thoughts which, as I said, I try to, we are always confused, you know, in terms of when I look at my data sheet of the product and what I want. So there is, as I said, we have a functionality which you would like to work with, and we have a product which is available with us, which is not custom, but we want to make it something which is nearest to our expectations. And when typically networks, when we look at the switches and kind of controls and kind of protocol like compliance, is same as having 70% of operating system coming as what we call the device drivers. Which I'm not going to use out most of it actually. I'm going to use only 4, 5 or 6 of devices actually out of it. So, but still, anyway, it's coming, and possibly and probably I'm paying for it. So because nowadays everything is being driven, even higher education is driven by the budget constraints, because we have the what we call deficit budget or loan-based budgeting coming in all of the institutions. I think you must have heard of HEFA, Higher Education Financial Authority. So we have to be very, very careful that what we buy, because ultimately it is going to be a loan to the institute for the next generation, which we need to look at. And the second thing is, as I mentioned briefly, that institution is still considered to be not-for-profit, whereas the product which we are buying coming from a corporation which is trying to sell this, they have to make a profit. There's a dichotomy over there, that whether their expectation, our expectation are matching or not. They want to sell an upgrade product every 5 years. Can I afford it actually? So, the concept of open source came, but again, open source per se, though it's not costing you anything from the very beginning, but computer centers, as they are becoming nowadays service centers, they are providing network services, they are providing data center services, they are providing big data services, they are providing ERP services. We cannot have any disruption in those services. And services, every services, there's nothing called free lunch. We have to pay for it. So you have to create a cost model which can sustain itself while managing the expectation of the users. And users' expectations are immense, actually, all the time. You can never match it. Believe me, actually, I have tested it in different ways. Because we still remain a country of freedom fighters. We want everything free, actually, in a sense. But on the other side, a good product cannot be free. A good service cannot be free. Because what we have grown up on a simple example is directory service, right? We used to have landline. Those who used, we used to say that, give me a number of this person with this name and this address, and that used to be free. You know that, and even different inquiry lines, what we call the toll-free numbers, they are completely free. Whereas if you go to any other part of the world, then I think the inquiry services are more expensive one. Actually, you pay per minute the highest cost, which we have to still shape our thing, that how the service will cost and how it makes out. Because service you can't see, you cannot touch and feel and shape. At times you find it difficult to explain to the account guy also that I have bought a software worth $500,000 to see this where it is. He says that this is CD which is going to cost you this much, or even nowadays, even not the CD, you have to download it, and then there's a pace of certain bytes which is saying that this is your license number. So you can see that there's a lot of distrust in his eyes, that what are you doing with this kind of money? But this is change which we have to manage all the time. Because computer centers per se have seen many avatars, actually, as I said, that earlier they were handling only hardware, some network switches, then they expanded to the hostels, then they actually started putting some Wi-Fi networks, and then came the service quality, then they were told that you have to run a data center, and now they say don't shrink your computer center, but make it only data center and good network. Because every person is getting their laptop or multiple mobile phones which need to be connected. Now, as he mentioned, that how do I control that access, that registered device, which I can somehow can control and manage through a profile, which I saw a solution coming through a segmentation, which can be interesting to see. But at the same time, a person in the hostel typically starts a hotspot with no internet, which is pretty nearby, and it becomes a rogue access point. So other person having no Ethernet connection, but having the Wi-Fi connected to the rogue access point without internet. Now he'll make a call that my net is not working. And somebody mentioned that without net, they can live without food, without water, but no network. Network has to be there. And meaning of net is internet, actually. Even the labs, if you try to switch it off, then no, there's a lot of hue and cry. Many of the institutions try to put some regulation that can be make it internet to be switched off from 1 o'clock to 6 o'clock in the morning. Oh, it's a whole hell break loose, because they don't want to do it. And suppose you even close the network, then they'll say that okay, come on, that we can at least play the games. So all different kind of challenges comes. And the maximum number of challenges you face when you are putting some kind of policy framework on your gateway devices or the network filtration side. So that's we have to learn, and that learning is not cheap as well. Somebody said that, he rightly said that, can we train our staff in computer center? Now, training modules of any good organization like Aruba or HP or Cisco, they are extremely expensive. Even online version, if I want to buy it, they will cost you a few $100 to a few $1,000, and that kind of money is not available usually. Though we talk about the academies and the campus, but that material which actually being meant for professionals is not usually available. So that need to be addressed. But the things gets complicated as soon as we have got free data flowing in. Nowadays, for last 1 year with Jio and Airtel, now you have everything's free, right? So you have 1 GB data, and now you are being compared that why can't this kind of services can be available in the campus? And then you are again confused that there is something what we say is fair user policy. Start counting your bits and bytes, and they start charging for those bytes. If it is commercial organizations, all right. But if I'm dealing with my 1 GB PC pipe, for my network spread across 3,000 or 5,000 nodes, then it becomes very difficult for me that what I am paying for, actually, am I getting it? So there's no way I can measure it, because my measurement does not match with the service provider's network and their measurement. So which we always argue that in what way it can be provisioned, it can be metered, actually. As I said, that we are witnessing too many changes too soon. In fact, hence there is always a rush to roll out a few things which probably we are not aware of. And there's a lot of push from the top, there's a lot of push from the bottom, and we computer center is sitting somewhere in between, trying to manage the show in a way. And as I said, we keep on looking and hearing this word that data is new oil, actually, right? Everybody want to profile you, whether you are a student, as a faculty and staff, but as a computer center, you talk about it. No. It's a reasonably private thing. Though Google knows everything about you, but at the same time, at least on academic profiling, academic data and connecting with the dots and create the complete profile may not be available. So containing that leakage information through our own service vaults, or what we call the academic vaults, need be done. And we don't have any standard model for that, because different institutions have done this automation different ways for their workflows, for their academic student cycles, and a few other infrastructure. As I said, that everybody in the institutions think about a lot, and they expect a lot, without thinking about the cost of expectations, that how it entails the cost. Technology as a replacement for too many things. As I said, as an instructor, you are talking about different technologies coming with this, and we always keep on arguing against the trade-offs. And typical trade-offs which we look at is centralized clusters versus distributed architecture, the private versus hybrid or the public clouds, which cost is better for us, open source versus proprietary with licensing, and even licensing is now having a different kind. Then software as a service, can we actually really buy it? There are instances that we have very good software available with perpetual, and all of a sudden they change their license to a subscription based, and we don't know actually how to deal with the same number of licenses going ahead. What is the perpetuity of those licenses which we already bought 5 years back, and now they are being converted to some kind of subscription based? Then we have the big versus large central infrastructures. Then public versus what we call the private clouds. In what way we can do it, and if we maintain ourselves, then what kind of security can be sustained out of it. We have to handle with all kind of contents, which are, some of them are private, and as well as some of them are, we want to make it public, typically the content, academic content, which we would like to share it. So their forms, their content, their types are really widespread and very challenging. Since we have gone to some kind of model for what we call as loan-based, revenue generation has come to forefront now. They say that generate money so that you can have a corpus, and I think many institutions would know it, and with the corpus you can sustain some services. But as a data, we can't monetize data like what other people are doing it. We are not a data company, though we have a lot of data, but we can't monetize it. So as a center, we are actually loss making, if you look at it. If you don't exclude the data, loss making. So how do you make it sustain? So that's a challenge. We have to look in what way we are going to look, because we have CCTVs, we have different kind of alerts coming through triggers with all kind of imagery. Just to add, slightly, I got scared actually. I was reading a book by Yuval Noah Harari, 21 lessons for 21st century. The 21 lessons he has given different chapters and talked about it. Majority of them are actually on technology side, that what will happen. So typically, I'll quote a couple of them. Typically for the work he mentioned, when you grow up, probably you might not have a job. And that might happen. But I'll give you a counter example in a couple of minutes time, then I'll close actually. It's not too long. And the new jobs, rather than for exploitation, it might force you towards irrelevance. And that's the panic, actually. If you think about it, that if you become irrelevant for the system, then what will happen with us? How do I, exist? And liberty, we talk a lot about liberty, but big data is always watching you. And those who owns the algorithms, possibly the smart algorithms, they can analyze your data, and then possibly they know more about you than yourself. We have some kind of pretense of decision making, but that is coming from some data which is not known to you. And as I said, he has clearly mentioned that artificial intelligence versus natural stupidity. So how do you deal with the situation, how it will take it and where it will take us? It's very, very important. And when we say equality versus liberty, then those who own data owns the future. And bigger question is, who owns the data and who should be owning the data? So which is very gray and we don't know about it. So it's more of a philosophy which connected very closely with technology as well, actually. And there is a truth and there is a post-truth, because we are talking about the fake news and elections winning through fake news, actually. So this is a reality. But this is a very negative side of it. But at the same time, I think a couple of months back, there was a report from World Economic Forum which talked about technology aspect and what will happen near future and middle term future. They talked about new economy and society, typically how the work transformation should accelerate and will accelerate in next 4 to 5 years. And the good news is, if we are able to adapt with the technology, like what we are talking about, machine learning, AI, and relearning ourselves, retraining, then possibly it will generate more jobs than what we are going to lose out of the automation. And there is a clear-cut 4 technology drivers which will happen, where most of the computer centers shall be involved, actually, that's for sure. But again, the buzzword or the bottom line is you have to adapt. If you are not able to adapt, then you will become irrelevant, actually, so for in times to come. So the above advancements, as I said, might dominate and will dominate as we speak. And the drivers will keep on affecting us as institutions, computer centers, and as society in general. We can adapt to these changes, then you will become one of the drivers and providers. If not, then you know what will happen actually with this. So we have to be ready for the same, what changes are coming. And they're interesting times. And if not, then time to get ready and put the buckles up before we become obsolete or irrelevant. So thank you very much for your attention. So these are a few thoughts. Thank you very much.
I'm grateful to Professor Gaur for giving us his time and his valuable insights on digital transformations in higher education institutions. In this regard, I would request Professor Singh to kindly give him an honor and a small token of our appreciation for his valuable time. Thank you, Professor Gaur. Thank you, Professor Singh.